Publisher Podcast, episode 92. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Publisher Podcast. Today, we're talking a bit more about marketing, public relations, PR, all of that great stuff, media, all of those things that we all need, whether we want to need it or not, if we're trying to grow our audience, sell more books, get in front of new people, etc. I've got a great guest expert today, Liz Kelly, who digs into some really important topics around PR and marketing, including some things like how to not make it scary, but most importantly, how to find your wow story so that media outlets are actually interested in what you have to say, and boiling it down to an 8-second snippet so that you don't lose the attention span of people when you're trying to talk about what it is that you can talk about, what it is that you're out there doing. So this is a great show filled with wonderful resources and information from Liz, and I just know you're going to love it. Don't forget, we have monthly webinars, workshops, all the things happening every month of the year. And you can find out what's up and coming at womenandpublishingsummit.com/events. Please go over there and check out what we have in the works for you. All kinds of things around writing, publishing, marketing, all the things. And also, if you're loving this podcast, we would love it if you would subscribe to the podcast, give us a great review, and please share us while we are trying to give you the tools and insights to get out there and share your message with the world. We would love your support in sharing our message as well. So I hope you love this interview and get some great insights. I know I got a lot of value from my time with Liz, and I hope you enjoy the show. Welcome to the Publisher Podcast, a place where you can come to get inspiration, motivation, help, encouragement, and support in your journey to write, publish, and sell your book. Hosted by Alexa Bigwharf. 'Cause I've been where you've been, and I felt what you're feeling, and I don't want to get in your way. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Publisher Podcast. We are going to be talking about publicity and PR today, which I just don't think you can spend enough time talking about because for me, the more I hear, the more I learn, the more confidence that I get from the processes. And I think each PR expert that we talk to brings just a tiny bit of a different spin on things, which can be really helpful because sometimes you hear a strategy and it terrifies you as an author to go down whatever road they are talking about. And sometimes you hear one that's easier and you think, oh, that's exactly what I can use to implement. So today we have Liz H. Kelly with us. She is in Santa Monica, California. She is the Goody PR founder, award-winning author. Her new book, 8-Second PR, New Public Relations Crash Course, second edition, 2022. She is a podcast host, 8-Second Branding, and founder of the New Goody Business Book Awards, launched in January 2022. Kelly started Goody PR to magnify good after working for MySpace, Paramount Pictures, Sprint PCS, and Los Angeles startups. With 15 plus years of marketing and PR experience, Kelly's booked thousands of major interviews for clients, including The Today Show, CNN, BBC, PBS, Fox Business, Time, Entrepreneur, NPR, The Washington Post, and more. So you basically have a superstar in our presence today. Lots to learn from you. She teaches digital marketing at UCLA Extension, is a Johns Hopkins Carey School of Business alumni, grew up in Baltimore, Maryland, and is an autism advocate. So you can follow her at Liz H. Kelly or visit 8secondpr.com or goodypr.com. And we'll have all these notes and links and everything in the show notes. But thank you so much for being here. What a bio.
Well, I am totally embarrassed now.
Embarrassed?
Thank you.
No, you shouldn't be embarrassed.
Well, it's been a great journey, and transitioning from corporate to PR was a dream that I wish I did a long time ago.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you've wandered into this world so that our authors can benefit you, because I mean, it's interesting. Like, there's a lot of book marketing experts out there in the indie world that I don't think place any emphasis at all on PR and publicity. And you hear marketing this way and this way, and then there's other people that put a lot of emphasis on it. And the longer I think that I spend in this industry, the more that I realize that it's really, the only way as an unknown indie author to get in front of as many people as you need to have the book sales that you need. Like, you have to be using media to get in front of unknown audiences, but it's scary.
It's very scary. And you read a great bio, and I appreciate that. But every single one of those interviews has a story behind it, and months of preparation and pitching, and really having no fear every time you're told no, because I get told no every day by media. And I'm like, okay, hit me again. I'm going to come back to you. I'm going to give you a new idea, because I'm just going to keep trying until you say yes. Or sometimes they'll say, no, this is just not for our outlet. And then you have to let it go. But most of the time, just like a salesperson, it's 7 times before they say yes, that you've pitched them.
Yeah. So, I think one of the daunting things about PR and publicity is the associated cost with hiring a publicist. For many of us, the monthly fee is more than we can even imagine ever paying, until we are, booking events like Oprah and things like that, right? But so you talk about, or you mentioned that authors can get free publicity and earned media. Can you talk a little bit about that and how we go about doing that? And is that through a publicist, or is that ways that we can just go out there and do it?
Great question. So first of all, you can do it either way, through a publicist or do it yourself. And when I got started on this journey, I wrote a dating book, and it was 20 years ago this fall. And I hired 2 publicists, and I took money out of my IRA because I was like, I am really serious. I want to get this book out. And I got national media through the publicist in the first couple months. And it ended up where my self-published book started getting a lot of attention. And then I ended up getting an agent and getting a publisher. Now, I don't think you need to do that anymore. And so that is part of why I wrote my book, 8 Second PR. And it's a how to do your own PR and do it without a publicist, using all of our secrets that most PR agencies would never tell you. Because we can't service the world, and we want to magnify good. That's our mission. Goody PR's mission is to magnify good. And the book, 8 Second PR, one of our goals is to help 1 million authors tell their story.
Oh, I love that goal. So let's talk about this why 8 seconds, first of all, and how can you share your story in 8 seconds? I can barely even say good morning in 8 seconds.
Well, good question. Well, the 8 seconds comes from the average attention span of an adult is 8 seconds, and it's based on a Microsoft study that was from 2015. So my guess is it's now like 3 to 5 seconds. So it's really, really hard to get people's attention. But for me, the secret is you want to use the power of threes and use things like emphasis statements. So for example, if you're watching the news and somebody says the top 3 things are, or the most important thing is, or what we do is magnify good, people will pay more attention. Just keep it simple and put that emphasis statement on there. And then if they want to keep listening, they'll keep listening.
All right. So when you talk about those 3, like what are for an author, what types of things are you going to put in there? Those 3 things.
Sure. Well, I'll give you an example. For the Goody Business Book Awards that we started to recognize authors, when we write a blog or we're doing a video, we'll say, here are the top 3 author benefits to getting an award. And we would say things like, number one, it increases your credibility as a thought leader. Number two, it increases your book sales. And number three, it helps you get more media interviews, because when the media is looking at thousands of pitches, if they see that you are in entrepreneur or fast company, you are going to stand out more
Yeah.
to them. And also, if it says you are an award-winning author, you stand out more.
Got it. So when you mentioned in the information you sent over, developing a wow story. So how do you develop a wow story, and which comes first, developing the brand and then a story around that, or developing your story and building a brand around your story?
Great question. I think it's probably a mixture.
Yeah.
What I like to do is go on walks, and a lot of times the ideas will come to me. But coming up with a wow story is really how to make your story different from everyone else. So I'll give you an example. I mean, with PR, and I've never told this example before, you have to have a lot of gumption. And I was thinking about it. Where did I get this gumption? Well, when I was in second grade, this is a true story. My mother transferred me from a Catholic school to this private prep school. And I loved it, but I wasn't getting my report cards. And everybody else was talking about how they got their report cards. So I'm, 8 years old, 7, 8 years old. I go to the principal's office and I say, can you tell me where are my report cards? And they sit me down and they say, well, we've been meaning to talk to you, and you're basically failing everything.
Oh boy.
And do you want to repeat second grade next year, or do you want to go back to first grade right now? And I called my parents, and my parents said, we hid your report cards because we didn't want you to get upset that you were failing everything. So that is a true story. And that is where I think I get, some of my gumption. And that's a wow story, because that's a type of thing that is memorable. And people would say, wow, she failed second grade and she had the gall to go to the principal and ask for her report cards because her parents were hiding the report card. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Story.
Now, I'll give you another example. I have a client that runs an addiction center for military veterans and first responders, which is
wonderful,
very wonderful, and a wow. They're the only one in the country that's a private facility that does this. And I love working with them. I call them my goosebump client. But we're pitching them for, there was something called National Service Dog Training Month in February last year. And what I did was I called the producer and I said, did you know that it takes 120 hours to train a service dog one behavior?
Wow.
And what I mean by that is, if you have PTSD and you're shaking your leg, you want to train the service dog to come up and put his paw on your leg, right? That takes 120 hours of training to teach that dog to do that. Wow. Now, the person who I had as the spokesperson, and the spokesperson's story is really the wow. It's not so much about the company. It's who's going to be in the interview. Anyway, so the spokesperson also had her own service dog for PTSD, and the dog would wake her up in the middle of the night if she had nightmares. And that would also take 120 hours to train. And I asked her to film a video of the dog waking her up, which she did. And so that got them an immediate interview because of that wow story.
Yeah, that's incredible. So what if you don't have something that stands out quite as much? And I know it sounds like most of your work would probably be with nonfiction authors and getting those nonfiction stories out there. Do you ever work with fiction authors, and how would a fiction author create a wow story around what they're doing?
That is another great question. And yes, I work primarily with nonfiction authors or small business CEOs because they have great stories to tell. But yes, I've also worked with fiction authors. And I worked with one who you interviewed, Rick Bleiweiss. And Rick wrote a murder mystery novel called Pinion, Scorpion, and the Barbershop Detectives. And it's like a Sherlock Holmes book, right? And so I was really digging because I got to find this wow story. So some of the things I found was Rick actually, when he was in the music business in New York, one of his coworkers got murdered and he got called to the scene because they found his business card at the scene.
Oh my
So
God.
that was one of the things that intrigued him and made him think like a detective. So that's a pretty powerful wow story. Now, I flipped it also and got him a TV interview on CBS San Diego with a totally different angle. And that was we took his music background and he had supported all these Grammy winners. And we did a story around Grammys that was how somebody behind Grammys who's a writer never gave up, because this was multiple books in the making, and he joined a writing group and they had done a short story about this murder mystery, and that's how it came to be. So it took years to evolve. So he spoke on the TV interview all about how to never give up as a writer, and to keep trying, and that's something that I think every writer can talk about, but he had that special hook that he had been working behind Grammy winners.
Wow, that's cool. So, once you've done the work to create your wow story and your all the things that are going to make you interesting, then how do you actually pitch? And you said how can you pitch your story to the media and get booked within 5 minutes? What on earth?
Yes. So I did have a client get booked in 5 minutes, and really what you want to do, and what we did with this client, was you need the perfect pitch at the perfect time with the perfect book.
Yeah.
So it was Martin Luther King weekend, and so that was the perfect time. He was the perfect guest because he taught people about how to be a servant leader, which Martin Luther King was.
Yeah.
And he was also African American and a business leader. He was a former general manager in the pharmaceutical business. And then he had the perfect book. It was called The Servant Leader's Manifesto. And so I had been pitching this guy for 8 months to CNN. And what I did on Martin Luther King weekend was I actually texted the host and I said, "Oh, I forgot it's Martin Luther King weekend. I've got this perfect guest, perfect timing, perfect book." And within 5 minutes, she said, "Yes, yes, we will book him for Sunday." So this is Friday. So I said to him, "Okay, tomorrow we have to do media training through Zoom," which I do with clients. And I'll just give a tip to the listeners, and that is, when you have a 3-minute TV interview, especially something that's national, you have to get to the point in the first sentence.
Right.
So I told him, I said, because it's Martin Luther King weekend, they're probably going to show images of Martin Luther King and they're going to show images of your book. And so bring up Martin Luther King and servant leadership in the first sentence. And
Wow.
that's what we had to practice over and over again, because at the beginning of this podcast, we had a very friendly opening. You read my bio. I said, "Thank you for having me here." You can't do that when you're on TV. They have to get right to the point. So that would be my media training tip.
Well, thank you. That's a good one. And then, we talk about in the very beginning, we talked about using publicity, PR, and all of those things to reach bigger audiences. So we've been talking about traditional media, but what about podcasts?
Well, podcasts are a wonderful outlet for authors because the interviews are usually longer and it gives you more time to get your story straight and also practice your sound bites and, key point, reach your niche audience. So One of the reasons why I wrote 8-Second PR was to help authors get free publicity because, again, we can't help everybody, but you can read the book and do it yourself if you want. So being on this podcast, Publish Her podcast, is the perfect audience for me. And the other thing is with a podcast, you want to make sure you have things like a microphone and lighting and a good internet connection. I've had clients who they have bad internet connections and we just, they end up calling the service provider and they have to come out to the house and they have to upgrade their service because it is really important when you're on podcasts that you have all these tools set up so that the interview goes across smoothly and people can hear you and see you and remember you.
Yeah. And then, like you said, just getting right in front of that audience, that warm audience of people who are already talking about the topic that you're interested in, and it's a natural fit. Well, I'm super excited about getting your book. I'll make sure that the link directly to the book is in here. But just one more question with that. You mentioned in your notes how you can get $50,000 in free publicity from one TV interview. So I think that's a fun way to end it because talking about this particular topic, because I think, in the beginning, I asked you like how important media and PR was for authors. And I think this is kind of a great example.
It is a great example. And I was so excited. Someone actually read my book, 8-Second PR, because they said to me, Liz, we cannot afford to hire you and pay the monthly retainer. And I said, fine, no problem. And I actually gave her the book. I said, here, take this. And it was about a year later, and she started posting that she had this interview on Fox 11, Los Angeles, which Los Angeles is the second biggest media market in the country. So that's another thing that plays into the value. And she showed me her book and she had put sticky notes in all the chapters and was following all the tips and had her team sit down with the book. So some of the things they did to get this interview were they came up with the wow story. And the wow story a lot of times is how can you help their audience, right? So the service dog example, that was how can you help others learn how service dogs get trained? So in her case, she had it's a CBD business. So, like medical marijuana, but it does not make you high. So she knew that was an important topic during the pandemic to have people feel calm and reduce their stress, right? So what she did was she came up with self-help workshops to help people learn how to de-stress during the pandemic. And then they gave out free samples of the product at the end of these workshops, right? So they came up with this idea, and she found the reporter on Instagram, pitched the reporter on Instagram because you can research and you can find these reporters on social media. You can get their email, but sometimes LinkedIn is really good. And so what she did was she just kept going back to them and they said, well, we know we want to do this, but we don't know when. And so then they came back one day and they said, all right, we could do it Thursday, but we don't have a camera person, right? So in the book, it tells you make it easy for the media, make sure you have pictures ready for them, have video ready for them, because TV especially likes visuals, right? So anyway, so she immediately says to them, oh, we have a videographer. We'll video it for you and we'll send it to you.
Wow.
And they were like, okay, great. Now, she did not have a videographer when she said that, but she knew to make it easy for them. And she went out and immediately hired somebody. And so they did this whole backstory about why she got into this business in the first place, which was to cure her father's stress and her migraine headaches with something that was, would not make you high, but was accessible. And so they did this backstory and showed pictures of her with her dad And then they showed video of her workshop that was free, and they give out free samples. And then they showed it twice, right? So I said to her, I'm going to get a Nielsen media report, which anybody can get. And I explain in the book how you can do it. But basically, you just call a video clipping service and they can send you a copy of a TV interview. In this case, it's $85. So it's worth the $85 to get the copy and get the media report. So I said, I'm going to get the media report because I want to see what was the calculated publicity value for your interview. So I got it. It showed that it played twice, and it showed that it was worth $40,000. But then she got $10,000 in sales of her product as a result of the interview. So that's where the 50,000 comes from. It's 40,000 for the publicity value, and then 10,000 in product sales.
Well, that's amazing. Wonderful. Well, yeah, I do think that that it makes a difference. The more people that you can get in front of through various outlets, through media, obviously, the more potential for book sales there always is. So I'm very excited to direct people to your book. It's 8-Second PR, and this will be in our show notes, of course. Is there anything else that you wanted to share before we wrap this up?
Well, I think the most important thing to share is just that I have been there. I have been in your shoes as an author, a self-published author, and then a published author. And it's hard to do PR. It's very hard to do PR. But if you keep trying, I want to be one of your biggest cheerleaders because you can do it. I know you can do it. You just have to have the gumption, like I did, to go into that principal's office and ask for my report card. You have to go to the media and you have to keep asking, can you promote my story, but in a helpful way with helpful tips for their audience. So make it about them and you will get the interviews, increase your book sales and your credibility.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. And again, you can follow her on social media at Liz H. Kelly, and go check out the show notes for all of her other links and information. And we appreciate you so much bringing all this great information to our audience.
Thank you so much, Alexa, and good luck to all the authors out there.
Thank you.
You don't have to give me your heart. You don't have to give it away. You don't gotta
Thank you for joining us on the Publish Her Podcast. We hope to see you back for the next episode. Great, huge thanks goes to Jasmine Commerce for the use of her song. You can find Jasmine on SoundCloud. Go check out all of her music. We'll see you next time.